The moment my stepson Jason shouted from the hallway, "Hurry up, Mom!" I can't stand on it anymore. I thought he was just being impatient the way teenagers often are when something small feels like the biggest problem in the world. But there was something in his voice that made me move faster than usual. Something strained and desperate that pulled me away from the kitchen sink where I had been rinsing dishes. The warm water still running as I wiped my hands on a towel and hurried toward the front hallway. My heart beating a little faster without any clear reason why. Because Jason and I had been living under the same roof for almost 6 years now, and normally our house felt calm, predictable, even comfortable in the quiet rhythm we had built together after I married his father Daniel. But lately things had felt different in subtle ways that were difficult to explain. The kind of changes that happen slowly until one day you realize the atmosphere in a home isn't quite the same as it used to be. When I reached the hallway, I saw Jason balancing awkwardly near the old wooden bench, one foot lifted slightly as if he was trying not to put weight on it, his backpack leaning against the wall and his face tight with discomfort. And the first thing that crossed my mind was that he must have stepped on something sharp again, like the time he ran across the backyard barefoot and ended up with a thorn stuck in his heel. So I knelt beside him and said gently, "Relax. Let me see," trying to keep my voice calm even though his expression made me uneasy. As he slowly lowered his foot onto the bench cushion, I noticed a small dark stain on the bottom of his sock, and my stomach dropped for a second before I carefully pulled the fabric back and saw the problem immediately. A tiny piece of broken glass embedded in the skin just below his heel, probably from the shattered jar that had slipped from my hands earlier that morning when I was cleaning the pantry. Something I thought I had swept up completely, but apparently missed a dangerous fragment of. Jason exhaled sharply and leaned against the wall, gripping the edge of the bench while I grabbed the small first aid kit we kept in the hallway drawer. The one Daniel insisted on keeping fully stocked for moments exactly like this, and as I sat down again and carefully cleaned the wound, I could feel Jason watching me with an unusual intensity. Not the distracted impatience of a teenager waiting for a quick fix, but something quieter, heavier, as if there were other thoughts crowding behind his eyes. "You okay?" I asked while gently pulling the glass free with tweezers, expecting him to complain about the sting. But instead he hesitated before answering, his voice lower now. "Yeah, it's just been a weird day." I pressed a bandage over the cut and told him to keep pressure on it for a minute, but his words lingered in the air between us because something about the way he said them sounded like the injury wasn't the real reason he had called me in such a panic. Jason had always been open with me since I came into his life, and even though I wasn't his biological mother, we had slowly built a bond based on small everyday moments like this: rides to school, late night conversations in the kitchen, quiet weekends when Daniel was traveling for work. But teenagers are complicated, and sometimes the things that weigh on them stay hidden until a random moment brings them to the surface. For a few seconds neither of us spoke, the hallway quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator down the hall, until Jason suddenly said, "Did you ever feel like something in the house changed, but nobody talks about it?" The question caught me off guard, and I looked up at him, trying to read his expression, because he wasn't looking at his injured foot anymore, but at the closed door of Daniel's home office at the end of the hallway. My mind raced through possibilities I hadn't wanted to consider before, remembering how distant Daniel had seemed lately, how often he worked late behind that door, how the tension in the house had grown in ways that were easy to ignore if you stayed busy enough. I stood slowly and followed Jason's gaze toward the office, feeling a strange mixture of curiosity and unease settle in my chest. "Why would you ask that?" I said carefully, but Jason only shrugged and shifted his weight again, testing the bandaged foot. "I just noticed things," he replied quietly. In that moment I realized that kids often see more than adults think they do. That the quiet spaces in a house can carry secrets long before anyone speaks them out loud. And as I looked at my stepson standing there in the hallway trying to balance both literally and emotionally, I felt the sudden understanding that whatever was happening in our family might soon come to the surface, whether we were ready for it or not. Because sometimes the smallest moment, a broken jar, a piece of glass, a teenager calling out for help, becomes the point where everything hidden finally begins to reveal itself. And as Jason took a careful step forward to test his foot again, I knew that the real conversation waiting for us had nothing to do with the injury at all, but with the quiet tension that had been building in our home for weeks. The kind of tension that makes ordinary afternoons feel like the beginning of something much bigger than anyone expected.